Give it a couple minutes.
Yeah, so thank you all for coming to join our webinar, where we'll kind of be showing off our latest with our generative AI powered programming for Opentrons robots. A lot of really, I think, exciting set of developments. So happy to kind of showcase those capabilities. And since the attendee count keeps kind of going up, we'll just wait maybe one more minute before we get started.
Get into triple digits. This is recorded too, so if you missed the beginning, you can catch up later. All right, should we go?
Let's do it.
All right, John, you want to start the introductions?
Yeah, so just quick, round of introductions. Hi everyone, I'm John Brennan Vidal, CEO of Opentrons, and so I've obviously been involved with Opentrons from the beginning. Mike, do you want to do a quick introduction on
Yep.
yourself?
Mike Cardarelli, lead product manager here. I'm working on authorship tools. So I was here maybe a month ago talking about protocol designer, also working on Opentrons AI with John and Elior and protocol library. So if you have questions, please share them in the Q&A and we'll get to them. If you have questions about protocol designer or protocol library, you can throw those in there too, and I'll take a look at them after the call. Elior, I'm going to pass it to you.
Hello, everyone. I am Elior. I'm mainly responsible for leading the AI projects. For this one, I'm responsible for Opentrons AI, and very nice to meet you. And get back to you, John.
Great. Yeah, and so just give everybody kind of, a quick kind of agenda for the day. We'll just give a quick kind of overview of Opentrons and the Opentrons Flex platform, and then talk a little bit about protocol authorship and how our AI tool kind of fits within that. And then we'll do a little bit more of a deep dive on our AI system, as well as talking a little bit about our AI, our beta findings from Opentrons AI, as well as do a little bit of a demo. So with that, let's jump in. And so for those that aren't familiar with Opentrons, we make robots for scientists, and we as a company are really looking to democratize access to laboratory robotics by making them easier to use, affordable, highly flexible systems that can really be a great partner for you in the lab. Next slide. Right, and as I kind of mentioned, we are very kind of focused on having a very user first approach, really trying to listen to product feedback and incorporate that into our products, as well as really just kind of take the mindset of what really, whether it's a pricing model or a design of a feature, how do we make this accessible? How do we make this how do we kind of use this as a means to improve the quality of life for scientists? Second, we've really focused on making a very modular platform, which means both from a hardware perspective as well as kind of leveraging open source software, which means is that you can easily reconfigure our systems without needing to have deep kind of technical knowledge, whether of hardware or software. But if you do have those kind of inclinations, we, through our open source nature, really give you that high degree of customizability. And we really focus and care about accessibility, right? And that certainly kind of leads us to kind of make our significant kind of investments in Opentrons AI to further and further kind of remove the barriers for using lab robotics and enabling kind of no code but powerful experiences really is, I think, an important kind of pathway for expanding access. And by doing all of these things kind of really well, this gives you, I think, a really kind of powerful, a robot that's accurate, repeatable, and scalable. Jump to the next slide. And so, through that focus, that's um, um, led us to, build a very large install base, with over 10,000 robots in over 79 countries around the world. Over 95% of the top 100 universities and 100 pharma companies, and even more of kind of that smaller subset, count themselves as customers. And so we really are seeing kind of tremendous adoption and adoption continuing to grow as we continue to kind of drive towards, more and more accessible solutions. Next slide. Great. And of course, kind of our big focus has been around our Opentrons Flex, which we brought to market, a year or so ago. Continues with that kind of open source kind of nature, but is a very kind of modular and easily kind of flexible system that can be where you can swap pipettes, hardware modules, and other pieces of the system to fit the specific needs of whatever kind of assay or workflow you're looking to run. With support up to 96 channels, a gripper. We have a plate stacker, which allows you to really expand the throughput and of your robot without expanding the size of your overall system. And so you can have a system like our Flex that might have comparable throughput capabilities just to other automation systems that might be 2 or 3x the size. And so I think that's a really kind of great, great new kind of module that we've recently announced. And of course, on, instrument display that allows you to kind of touch, and even design and run protocols with, guided setup, automated kind of calibration processes, and a kind of easy to use plug and play experience. And so we really think the Opentrons Flex is a great solution for most labs. Let's keep going on. Just to kind of ground folks on pathways for kind of authoring protocols. And of course, you can do all these activities yourself or work with our FAS team to help to develop protocols for you. We have a robust API that's based on Python, a protocol designer experience, in which is a graphical user interface where you can drag and drop interface and design new protocols in a code-free fashion. You can use our protocol library where you can browse and use and build on of existing protocols and applications that have been developed by us, some of our reagent partners, and some members of our community, as well as our quick transfer experience, which is you can use the on-screen display of the robot to very quickly create simple protocols. And we've been investing in Opentrons AI as a powerful tool to enable you to use all of these types of experiences, whether creating Python, API protocol-based protocols, or managing protocol designer, or some of these other experiences through natural language, all enabled through Opentrons AI. And so we'll talk a bit more on, the progress we've kind of made in infusing Opentrons AI into increasingly more and more of these experiences. Let's jump to the next slide. Great. And so just to get kind of everybody on the same, page, there's, it's worthwhile to talk a little bit about, latest kind of trends in AI and LLMs. One, what is an LLM? It stands for a large language model. And these are AI models that have been trained on very large amounts of text data. And so when you kind of, essentially, when you've taken kind of fairly simple models like the transformer model and throw a whole bunch of data, like in the case of, ChatGPT and some of these other systems where you throw like 20 million tokens worth or 20 trillion worth of tokens of data, you really start getting some really amazing new kind of capabilities to be able to kind of understand natural language, become very effective at translating that into other languages, and very significantly to us, become increasingly more and more competent at converting natural language into code. And so as a result, this makes LLMs a very promising tool to enable Opentrons robots to be even more approachable. And we really kind of think about this as, hey, what happens if you can have truly kind of great experiences of just providing a natural language prompt or a manual protocol, and an LLM system combined with some of our work can allow you to have a valid protocol generated without ever having to write any code. And so let's continue on to the next slide. And so how we've built our system is we've taken some of these off-the-shelf LLMs as we've kind of evaluated solutions from a range of solutions, but have over time used both solutions from OpenAI with ChatGPT, as well as the Claude Sonnet LLMs from Anthropic. And depending on the relative kind of performance of the kind of latest models, we have kind of switched back and forth between the latest model, looking to kind of to be utilizing the LLMs that derive some of the best kind of experience. And so we take those LLMs and have implemented and trained it on a range of kind of important pieces of information around our labware libraries, our API, all our documentation, the corpus of all the protocols that have been developed on our platform. And all of this allows us to really kind of provide an expert curation of these LLMs, providing a much kind of smarter experience of using these LLMs to program meaningful code. Next slide. And so with those kind of expert curated LLMs, then that allows us to additionally build an experience in which we have help and customers build the right kind of guided prompts to be able to get the best kind of quality kind of coding kind of output from these LLMs. And kind of at a high level, a bad prompt will give kind of a bad kind of result. And what do I kind of mean by that? It's really kind of common to give a very underspecified kind of prompt, because if you just blindly say, hey, write me a NGS library prep, protocol, it will take that and kind of run with that and attempt to kind of do that. But that's not really a sufficient enough information to actually make something that's actually meaningful for you. It's like, well, what kit, is being, is being used. And there's a specific set of steps associated with automating, a specific, kit. What labware are you using, And so there's all these kind of additional pieces of information that are really important to kind of include so that you can have a specific enough prompt to get a high quality kind of result. And so we've put effort to build the right user experience to help you develop those right kind of prompts. And because those are just, natural language, it's a much easier way to kind of, interact with the system. And so then with those guided prompts, we jump, those are passed into the LLM, to the next slide. And the LLM will generate a version of the code and pass that into our API and go through a debugging process. And so what happens is the LLM, based off of that hopefully high quality prompt, will generate a set of code that gets passed into our API where we run kind of a simulation process. We may identify errors in that simulation, and and based off of those errors, we feed those errors back to the LLM. And because we put a lot of effort to have kind of human readable errors that end customers can have action upon, those LLMs can read and understand what those errors are and actually be very effective at kind of correcting them. And so we generate this code, pass it back, have this kind of interaction back and forth of debugging until you finally have a actual protocol file that's outputted by the LLM that not only, is of course in code, but it's actually been debugged code. So you can have a much kind of greater confidence when you run it that it actually simulates and actually, corresponds to what you actually want. Next slide. And then of course, with that outputted protocol, then you can be, running that on our robot. And so jump next slide. And so there's a few things I want to kind of, highlight, that around kind of our overall approach to a company that's made us kind of very effective in being able to take advantage of these LLM systems. Um, you know, at a very kind of basic level, by having kind of a robust platform that's Python based with extensive documentation, et cetera, that has allowed us to be able to very, very quickly train these AI systems on our platform. And it's those kind of investments over time that we've made really, have helped kind of our developer community, but also helps, AI be more effective and quickly having a deep understanding of our systems relative to some of the other more complex or older automation systems on the market. The second kind of major piece is having a large and active open community that has generated literally thousands of protocols. Um, it's those protocols that provide really, really great information to help further train these models, so that they have a much deeper kind of understanding of some of the scientific context and the context of how that scientific context maps onto the actions of our robot. Um, and then this kind of very modular approach towards hardware design also is really, kind of essential, because as you look to kind of automate new things, you don't have a situation where you have lots and lots of different, versions of your robot that you're programming for. It's all just a flexible system so that if a different module is needed or needs to be moved into a different position, the code can easily accommodate that, and the end user can easily accommodate that by just laying things out differently on the deck. And with other kind of companies that have kind of many kind of fixed positions of things, these just all end up being additional kind of constraints that limit the ease of kind of programming or AI to program for these kind of systems. And then kind of lastly, having really kind of cost-effective or affordable kind of solutions is really kind of valuable for building a larger and larger user base, by making having our software be free, as well as obviously kind of affordable pricing for our hardware and services. That enables a larger and larger customer base, because you can be addressing more customers, and that provides more and more great kind of usage and data that further kind of trains and refines the AI system. And so it's kind of our view that to really make effective kind of AI tools, you really need to have a range of different kind of investments so that you can be best positioned to kind of maximize these experiences in the current kind of state of art of LLMs. Next slide. Great. And so, in a kind of similar fashion, we've really systematically have, addressed many of these weaknesses of current, LLMs to further kind of reduce hallucination effects and many other, types of things, right? And so to kind of, reiterate, like, these LLMs don't have like stock knowledge of all the applications of the API, et cetera, et cetera. And so we've systematically, ensured that we've, have an open API, large number of applications, different UI affordances to help customers make high quality prompts, as well as have a strong kind of debugging agent to work with the AI coding agent to really, simulate and debug any kind of protocol so that the LLMs are not just generating code that sort of works, but is actually what you want and properly compiles. Next slide. Right. And so these kind of investments have, translated to growing usage of AI on the Opentrons platform, with now over 100 peer-reviewed publications that use AI with the Opentrons platform. And so a lot of really exciting things. And I think one of the most, exciting kind of dynamics we've seen is that a growing number of labs and customers have been developing their own AI agents that can work and interface with our Opentrons AI agent. And so you can focus on higher level kind of questions and not have to worry about how do you kind of integrate that in with an automation platform, because your integration can literally be an AI agent talking to another AI agent. And so you can focus on, in this kind of, cited example of, hey, we made an AI agent that develops different chemical synthesis kind of pathways. And the integration with our platform is literally that their AI agent outputting natural language about that synthesis pathway, and our AI agent working with that output to convert that into a specific protocol that our robot runs. And so that's really what we kind of see as an interesting and exciting kind of trend is that a more effective way of building kind of software and software tools may be not you build a tool, you do like a custom, deep kind of integration API to API to a platform, like a forward-facing kind of platform like ourselves, but instead you can really have the lower lift of having your AI agent talk and interface with our AI agent as a means to effectively kind of integrate and have that kind of same equivalent kind of deep API level of integration. And as a result, those types of activities like that integration, collapses in terms of time and effort. And so I think a lot of really kind of exciting trends that we've been seeing. Next slide. Oh, there we go. And then of course, it's great to also see kind of, AI, being used in hackathons and other sorts of things. And I think this has been really kind of interesting is that seeing, our tools being used, whether it's Opentrons AI or our robots used in non-life science centric hackathons, where because of the approachability of our tools, you're able to actually bring in folks that, not only may not have, deep kind of, don't even necessarily need to have deep scientific knowledge, because you can be using these AI tools to help kind of, supplement in those type of areas. And so I think you see this really kind of interesting kind of dynamic where I think AI enable scientists to be kind of increasingly more technical without needing to know how to do technical things like programming, as well as for non-scientists to be able to have interesting kind of contributions to science without necessarily needing to leveraging their like programming skill sets, et cetera, without necessarily needing to have as much kind of deep scientific domain knowledge. And so I think it's a really kind of, interesting kind of dynamic we've been seeing with AI tools and broadening this kind of accessibility. Next slide. I think that brings us to the end of that section.
Yeah, thanks for the context,
Yeah.
John. I'm going to dive a little bit more into the specifics of the product, and then I'm going to do a demo. So let's just get into it here. First thing I want to talk about is the first version of this, I looked it up on my calendar, and we did a webinar for Opentrons AI on March 13th, so just a little over a year ago. And I think we were just introducing the tool. It was in the very early stages. This is what the UI looked like. It was just a chat interface, like if you use ChatGPT or Claude. And we just wanted to see if we could get something working. And I think overall, the results were better than we expected, faster than we expected. But the user interface of this product wasn't quite right as we did. So we did an open beta with 300 participants. We did some user testing where we got hands-on with some customers who were using it. And I'm going to summarize some of the challenges that the first version of this had. So I think the first thing was there was just a lot of text on the screen, and it's very easy to skip all of that and go straight to the chat window. But the problem is the text was important. The text was telling you, hey, you need to create a detailed prompt with the following information. And in our user testing, we saw people kind of go straight to the chat and be like, like John was saying, give me a serial dilution or give me an NGS library prep. We need a lot more information just because of the details matter in robotics. So I think, the first thing was, how do we kind of put some guardrails in so that we're getting good protocols? I think the other piece of that is trying to make the required fields required. So if there's stuff we need to know, if we need to know what kind of pipettes you have, what kind of robot you have, what kind of labware you have, we should enforce that on the front end so that the user isn't in the process of making a protocol and then running into a lot of errors further downstream. So I'll show you what that ended up looking like in the new version of the tool. But you can see here, like, this is a detailed prompt. Like, this is a prompt that will get you a good protocol. But there's a lot of info there, and it takes a while to put this together and before you submit it. So the other piece that we didn't really expect was we had built this for creating a protocol from scratch. So it was starting from zero, enter this info, and then you will get a new protocol back that the LLM generates. But a lot of the people that we were talking to, they actually wanted to use the tool to update an existing protocol. So maybe take a protocol they already had, but they bought a new pipette and they wanted to switch pipettes. Or they had an OT2 and they had bought a Flex and they wanted to convert the protocol from OT2 to Flex. That was very clunky in the old experience. You could do it and you could say, like, in the chat window, I'm about to import a protocol and then I want you to make changes. But you really had to know what to type to get that to work. And I'll show you this new flow that we built and how much easier it is now. And then the last thing is something that we're still working on, but you could get a protocol in minutes from the tool. And then what? Like, is this a good protocol? Do I want to run this on the robot with expensive reagents? Like, there's a lot of doubt, I think, that this would be ready for prime time. So I think what we need, and this is like something that we're working on now, is a way to validate, visualize, make edits, just have more confidence that this protocol is doing what you expect it to do before you bring it to the robot and try a dry run on the robot. So we haven't solved this in the current version, but we have some exciting news on this front. And if you stick around to the end, we'll have a little teaser of something, an event coming up. So this is what the new tool looks like. It's I think we call it internally like a wizard style flow. There's a few steps that you go through. If you fill everything out, you're extremely likely to get a good protocol back. And then there is that secondary flip for updating a protocol, and I'll show you that in a minute. Before we get into the demo, I want to talk about the stuff that Elior has been working on behind the scenes with the model. So there's a lot of stuff that's changed since last year that you can't really see as a user, but it's really helped the tool work better. So like John said, these models keep improving, and we've built this product in a way that it's very trivial for us to switch models. So Elior has benchmarking tests set up. ChatGPT was doing the best, and then Claude started doing better, so we switched to Claude. If that changes, we can switch again. But right now, we're using Claude 3.7, which just came out, and Elior just made that update. In the same way, Opentrons Python protocol API has updates. So I think 2.1.5, that was the release when the Flex came out. So it knew about the Flex, but all kinds of stuff has launched since then. There's a heater shaker module. There's all kinds of new software features. All of that stuff was unknown to Opentrons AI when we were on an older API version. So we're now on the latest, which is 2.22. So all of the latest features and hardware are supported. So all the modules are supported now compared to last year. RAG improvements. I think one thing I would call out here is obviously we have an open and well-documented Python protocols API reference, and we have other documentation. We also have like a completely open source code base in GitHub. But Elior and I found stuff that wasn't really documented in a way that the LLMs could take advantage of. If you use Protocol Designer, there's a lot of rules about what modules can go in which slots, what labware should go in which slots to avoid collisions and things like that. We didn't really have a good doc for that. So stuff like that has come up where it's like, what should the deck layout be? So we wrote a document new and then used it to train the model. So I think we've learned throughout the year what these kind of holes in the model were, and we've worked to fill them. So, and then the last thing is just that simulation that John was talking about, like debugging within the tool. And now you find much less errors in the generated protocols, to the point where I don't really simulate much in the chat anymore because it doesn't usually find any errors. But that was something that we added this year. And okay, I think that's enough on the backend side. Let's just get into the demo. I'm going to switch tabs here, and I'm going to make a protocol. So this is the new landing page, and you can start from scratch or update an existing protocol. We'll do that second. So once we get in here, you can see there's like a few different chunks here. I guess there's like accordions: application, instruments, modules, labware and liquids, and steps. If you fill this out, you will get a good prompt and you will get a good protocol. And you'll see on the right, we start building this prompt as we go. So just gonna pull up my example. I'm gonna do a basic aliquoting protocol. It is just a protocol. This is simple, but like take master mix from a tube and fill a plate, a 96 well PCR plate. So you can see that starting to fill in here on the right. Now we're going to go to the next step. What kind of robot do we have? I'm going to do the Flex. I'm just going to put a 50 microliter single channel on the left, and then we don't even need the other one. I don't need a gripper. I'm just going to leave it. And so now you see my instruments here. This uses a temperature module with an adapter. So all the compatible adapters are listed here. And then labware, let's see, tip rack. I need a 50 microliter filter tip. And I need a 96 well plate. Let's see. One second. Where are we? Here we go. Opentrons. Okay. And then now we're in the liquids tab. So I think I'm just using master mix here. So I'm just going to put this tube. So this is filling a tube on the temperature module with master mix. Going to confirm. If you had more liquids, you can add more liquids here. And then you just add the liquids one at a time. And now the steps. Now, if you had a long protocol, sometimes a kit will have like all the steps for a manual protocol. You can go here and just paste them. You just want to number the steps, or you can add them individually one by one. It's really important to separate out the steps and not just have like a big blob, like a paragraph. You're just going to get better results if you number the steps clearly. So this is a pretty short one, and I can put everything in this one step here. So transfer from master mix from the tube on the temperature module to the PCR plate, and then don't change your tips. So I'm going to hit confirm, and now you can see we got green lights all the way here. So everything that's required has been filled out, and then the prompt looks like what we were saying earlier. Like if this is a completed, this is a high quality prompt. So I'm going to hit the button to submit this now. So this UI is basically doing what we used to do, where you used to just paste it into chat. This is like pasting it all into chat now. So I'm going to hit it, and you can see like the chat has begun. And this is us submitting that prompt, and now it's working. Takes a while. I think last year, I don't know if I even remember what it took, but maybe Ellie or you remember. Was it like 5 minutes or 7 minutes or something?
Yeah, depending on the length of the prompt. Yeah.
And now it's like closer to 1 or 2, I think.
Yeah, around 1 minute.
Okay. Yeah, I need some like hold music or something. It's coming. Just give it a minute.
While we're waiting, Mike, actually, there's a great question that's just popped in, which is related to the prompt. So I might just use this time to ask this question. So the question is, can you use custom labware in the prompts, or is it only for predefined labware?
Yeah, so the UI makes it difficult. We just have the standard labware in those dropdowns. But what you can do is you can say your custom labware is a 96 well plate. You can pick a Opentrons or any of those in the list, 96 well plate, and then generate the protocol, and then swap in your API load name in chat afterwards. So there is a way to do it. It's not as easy as it is.
But
using standard.
But that's definitely an issue or a feature request we've kind of identified and are working on kind of a more elegant solution for that.
Yep. Okay. Okay. So this generated, and so you can see all the pieces here. Even if you don't know Python, it's very readable. So the metadata, this is like, what I asked. This was like the description I put in. This is the protocol name. This is the API version. We're on the latest. This is the robot type. I'm just going to quickly run through this. This is all the setting up your labware on the deck. This is the liquid. This is the master mix. The nice thing is it even gave it a color that you'll be able to see in the desktop app when you load it in on the deck map. This is where the liquids are going in the tube during deck setup. And this is the temperature that the temperature module is set for. And then this is the transfer. Okay, I'm gonna just show you like an example of what you can do afterwards with the chat. So instead of 4C, let's try to switch it to 22C. So we'll have the temperature module heat up before we start the pipetting steps. And then we'll try one more thing here. Okay, so you can see instead of 4C, now we're heating up the temperature module to 22C before the pipetting steps begin. And then I wanted to show you one more thing. We just recently launched a Mandarin translation of the desktop app, the Opentrons desktop app. So one cool thing you could do is maybe take your protocol. Obviously you can't translate the Python, but you can translate the code comments. So let's ask it to take our protocol and change the code comments to Mandarin and see what that looks like. I cannot read Mandarin, but maybe someone on the call can. I think this looks pretty good to my eye, though. And you can do this. I was messing around with it earlier. You can switch it to Italian or Spanish or French. These LLMs are surprisingly good at translations. Any questions about this? But I do want to show the update flow real quick. But if there's anything, you know what? I'll open a new tab in case we want to go back to this. Okay, so I'm not going to go through all of this, but you can just see if you have a protocol that you want to make updates to, you can drag it into here or choose it. And then we have some examples of like common things that you might want to do. So converting from OT2 to Flex is obviously something a lot of people are working on these days with all the Flexes shipping. And then changing labware, like, so if you generated a protocol and you're like, actually, I want to use this custom labware, you could do that here as well. And then changing pipettes. I guess the last thing I would say is on the, so anyway, you would put that in here, you submit the prompt, and then it's just like the other flow. You would move over to the chat, you would get the protocol back. I just want to show this thing here. So you can hit this download button and get a Python file that will download straight from your browser, and you just drag that over to the Opentrons desktop app and you can run this. So it's very easy from here to the robot. Okay, I'm going to go back to the slides. We just have a couple more. And okay, just want to talk about the usage. We did a demo at SLAS San Diego at the end of January, and it's been kind of wild to watch. Well, it's been kind of surprising because we hit a usage limit at the beginning of February where we had used our whole month of credits in like 5 days or something like that. So we had to up some of those limits. And we've just been watching the analytics, and the usage is just skyrocketing here. So people are using this thing, which is very cool to see. I think we think we're on the right track here, but obviously the work is not done, and we really want to hear from you. So if you're using this tool, like, please, add questions today, or reach out, or we'll have other webinars coming up. And if you're a customer, you could talk to your sales rep. But yeah, we really want to hear like what challenges you're finding, because as we've been using it, like we find kind of problems and then we fix them, and then it's been coming along pretty quickly over the past year. So I think the last thing I want to tease is just like looking ahead here. So what are we working on? We're going to keep expanding the supported applications. So for us, that means getting example protocols for all of these things. Like when you select a PCR protocol, we're using PCR protocols that we have to help the LLM know what to do. So we need to gather more example protocols that are good and up to date, so that we can generate more protocols in more better protocols in more application areas. So that's something that is like a lot of work for Elior and the team, but obviously there's a lot more than what you can see in that drop down right now. And then we have an ambitious roadmap on the hardware and software side at Opentrons. So as those new products launch this year, the Flex Stacker, new labware is coming out, there's liquid classes on the software side, all that stuff we need to make sure that the Opentrons AI tool is able to generate protocols that either control that hardware or leverage those software features. So we're always going to have to be keeping this up to date with the latest that the Opentrons platform is capable of. And then the last thing is just what we heard from last year from our beta testers, where they really want a way to validate, edit, visualize these protocols before bringing them to the robot. We have not solved that yet, but we have some exciting news. We're going to show you how to use Opentrons AI with Protocol Designer in the webinar coming up. It's going to be May 14th, and we can demo how to pass a protocol from Opentrons AI to Protocol Designer, and then you can look in Protocol Designer, inspect all the steps, and make changes. So pretty exciting stuff. It's very cool to use, and we really want to get this in your hands as soon as possible. But if you join us in May, that'll be the soonest you'll be able to see it. So I think that's all we have as far as slides. We do have time for questions. I know we only have 12 minutes, but maybe we could get to some of those.
Yes, thank you so much, guys. There's been some great questions coming in. I wanted to start off with this great question, which I think is really relevant for a lot of people. For someone who has no coding background and does not know how to read Python scripts, does the AI generate a deck map showing where each labware is positioned?
Yeah, you can. Well, yeah, I mean, the code section, you know, even if you're not comfortable with Python, it's fairly readable. Like you can see the, you know, the trash is in slot A3 on the temperature module is in D1. But if you don't want to read this, you can also put that, download that Python file and drag it into the Opentrons desktop app, and you can see the deck map there with the labware and module locations.
Yeah. In addition to that, you can prompt, like summarize to me or explain to me. Yeah, you can interact any way you want.
Do we? I don't know if this is bad form. Can you list all of the labware and module deck slot locations? Let's try it.
But you know, also the key thing is definitely stay tuned for our May release, because that will, I think, will be maybe the optimal experience for you, because you don't have to be worrying about the Python, because it'll be generating a protocol that you can be visualizing and editing in Protocol Designer. And so you know, I think, you know, some of the solutions that Mike just kind of showed will be, I think, you know, helpful in the short term, but I think the you know, the right, you know, the generating for use in Protocol Designer will provide that more kind of robust code-free experience.
Yeah, I think Protocol Designer is the best because you can also take your deck and move stuff around. You can't do that in the Opentrons desktop app. It's sort of like read only. But in PD, you can drag and drop the modules around and make changes that way. Sorry, drag and drop the labware around.
Great, thank you guys. This is the next one. This is kind of related. Obviously, we talked about being able to visualize and then manipulate the protocol once you get it into PD, and that's what we'll show in the webinar in May. There's another question though. Can you use Opentrons AI to adapt JSON protocols to Python?
Elior would know better than anybody on earth, I think. I think we've done some work on that. I don't know. I think the results are.
Yeah, I think we'll just give Elliot kind of up to
Yeah,
respond to that.
it's not as clean as we wished, I think.
If Frank, could you repeat the question again? I was responding to other questions. So
Transferring from JSON to Python, like, is that something you could, or no, it was Python to JSON, right?
No, JSON to Python.
JSON to Python.
Right, first.
from JSON to Python, yeah, we have tried that, but we have now, we don't need I think anymore, because our upcoming the webinar, our upcoming feature is you just go to from text to JSON, and then you can visualize directly in the PD. And also we are working on in PD itself, you can generate Python as well as JSON file. So at the moment, we are not working on it because
Yeah,
we can achieve the same thing.
So to kind of summarize, we're actually building a native feature in PD, so you can convert JSON files into Python, and so that's probably be your best pathway to do that, and that'll be a release that we'll be making in the coming months.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you, guys. So here's a question about, so if you're thinking about adapting a current protocol, but you just want to change certain steps, is there a sort of preference about whether you upload the whole protocol or just the steps that you want to change, or does it not matter?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You just need to be clear. Clearly mention this statement. How in what way you want to change it. You just describe it, and then it will do for you.
Super. Okay, perfect. This is a great one. So this is about hallucinations. So how often do you get hallucinations? And do you see hallucinations appearing more frequently when you're asking the AI to develop more complicated protocols?
For this kind of models, hallucination is very, very minimal. For previous versions, yes, there were lots of hallucinations, but it generates very, very reliable results for these models.
Awesome. Thank you, Elior. There's a great one about liquid classes. Just as a note, we will have a webinar about liquid classes in general next month in April. So look out for that notification. But the question here is, can we call out the liquid class? Presumably they mean in the AI tool.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that is like something we could add to the UI of the wizard once they launch. I hadn't really been thinking about the right way to incorporate those, but yeah, that's something we want to leverage. I mean, we're getting really good results in our testing lab here with the liquid classes that were the first 3 that we're launching in the next few weeks. And then, yeah, we want to make sure. I think the thing about liquid classes is it's not really going to help protocols that are already written, because you would have to do a lot of work to incorporate them. But for new protocols that you're writing, it really does speed up the process and you get good results. So I think we want to make sure the AI tool is able to leverage.
Yeah, and that's something where we're still kind of in early stages of testing, kind of using the AI tool to update existing protocols to add additional liquid classes to them. And that might be the pathway, because as Mike kind of mentioned, it can be very tedious if you had to do that manually or program that in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So great question here actually about input data. So can you use CSV input data as a parameter?
No, not at this moment, but we will integrate in the future. But the good thing is you can generate a protocol which has a placeholder for CSV.
Yeah, I think something that we're going to work on this year is, I think there's some integration with runtime parameters, but we haven't spent a lot of time on runtime parameters and CSV protocol generation, but it's certainly something we can add. It's in our plans.
Excellent, thank you. And then there are a couple of questions that I'm just going to sort of smoosh into one because they kind of address the same topic. So how can you use the AI agent to generate protocols using customized labware? So what can you specify the custom parameters for the labware?
Yeah, I mean, you can take your custom labware API load name and then ask it to swap out with a standard labware if it's like something of the same type. So if you had your own reservoir, you could use a placeholder reservoir, and then once you get the protocol, ask it in chat to put your custom API load name in the protocol in place of the standard definition. But you can't select your custom labware in the wizard when you're going through the labware step.
Okay, excellent. So one interesting question that I'm pretty sure is a positive response. So can we add delay periods to the protocols? Can you add like a sort of delay step?
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
pauses. Those are steps available via the Python protocols API.
Yeah, we support all the basic commands from the Python API. So
you would add that as a step
Yeah.
when you're doing the steps step in the wizard. Yeah.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, this is, I think, a feature request. I mean, this is great. This is great material for us, in terms of feature requests. So thank you for all these questions, everybody. So this is a great feature request. Can you integrate Opentron's GitHub code base into the context of Opentrons AI? It would be great to be able to ask questions about the code base itself.
Yeah, we did some asking about documentation, right, Elior? Like earlier, but it's not something you can do now.
Yeah, we can incorporate this, but yeah, certainly we're going to do in the future, but we have to validate first whether how good it is. So because our Opentrons GitHub repo is huge, it's mono repo, it's huge. So there are a lot of things will go. So we need to be very careful because there are so many data, and many documents are not very useful for a general public.
Okay, thank you. I think we have time for one more question, so I apologize to people who we haven't had the chance to answer the questions. We will, if you have your name attached to the question, then we can get in touch with you afterwards. But so the last question that I'll just use in this final minute is, we talked about the additional protocol, the additional applications that we want to add. So which ones are we contemplating adding?
Yeah, we have a list. I think, I mean, NGS is the first one that jumps out. I think getting runtime parameters is not an application type, but getting runtime parameters to work consistently, CSV integration. Yeah, I don't know. Is there anything else that I'm trying to think of the list that we have, John. Or Elior.
List of
future applications.
a few applications, yeah. Extraction and then NGS.
Okay.
Excellent. I think we run out of time, so a few more questions that we'll get to you after the webinar has finished.
Great. Thanks for all the questions.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.